Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are digging into the idea of the nudge, and we're going to ask a pretty fundamental question. How much control do we really have over our own decisions?
Okay, let's start with something I'm pretty sure we've all felt. You know you should save more money or you should eat healthier, and you're totally gonna do it tomorrow, right? That gap between what we want to do and what we actually end up doing, well, that's at the very heart of what we're talking about. It's a classic human thing, and it turns out it's incredibly predictable. So here's the plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at why our brains sometimes feel like they're working against us. Then we'll introduce this idea of a choice architect, someone who actually designs the situations where we make choices. After that, we'll look at some really cool real-world examples. And finally, we'll get into the big, juicy ethical debate. Is this stuff helpful, or is it just a sneaky form of manipulation? All right, let's jump right into part one. See, the whole idea of nudging is built on one huge insight from behavioral economics, and it's this. We are not the perfectly rational, logical beings we like to think we are. Nope. In fact, our decision-making has some very specific, very predictable glitches.
This slide shows just how much the framing of a choice matters. Take a look. In both of these scenarios, the outcome is exactly the same, mathematically speaking, but one is framed as a gain, you're saving people, and the other is framed as a loss, people will die. And what happens? Most of us pick the first option and run away from the second. That's a classic bias called loss aversion. Our brains are just wired to hate losing way more than we enjoy winning. And then there's this little problem, what the source material calls failing willpower. We have this tendency to prioritize what feels good right now over what we know is going to be good for us later. You might have heard it called hyperbolic discounting. It's the reason that slice of chocolate cake today feels way more powerful than the goal of fitting into those jeans next month. It's not that we don't want the long-term goal, it's just that the immediate reward is yelling a lot louder in our heads. Okay, so if we know people are, predictably irrational, what if we could design the world around them to help them make better choices? This is where the whole nudge theory really kicks in. It's time to meet the choice architect.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Libertarian paternalism? That sounds like a total contradiction, right? How can you be both? Well, think of it this way. The paternalism part is about trying to guide people towards choices that will make their lives better. But, and this is the key, the libertarian part means you can never take away their freedom to choose. No options are banned. And this quote right here, it gets to the absolute soul of the idea. The goal isn't to force someone else's ideas onto you. It's to help you make the choices that you yourself would probably make if you had all the time in the world, perfect information, and superhuman willpower. It's all about closing that gap between our good intentions and our actions. So the main tool for a choice architect is the nudge. A nudge isn't a rule, it's not a fine, it's just a small change in the environment, in that choice architecture, that makes one option a little easier or a little more appealing, without actually banning any of the other options. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this actually play out in the real world? Let's look at a couple of examples, because this is where the power of this idea really starts to click. I want you to imagine a choice architect named Carolyn. Her job is to run the food services for a whole city school system. And she's got a classic problem. She wants the kids to eat healthier, but she knows she can't just ban pizza and French fries. So what can she do? She nudges them. It's brilliant in its simplicity. She just rearranges the cafeteria. She puts the fruit and salads at eye level right at the start of the line. And she moves the desserts to be a little less convenient. The source material says a simple tweak like this can change what kids eat by as much as 25%. And here's the most important part. The choice is still there. If a kid really wants a brownie, they can still get one, but the healthy option just became the easy option. Now, for a really powerful example, one that affects millions of us, saving for retirement. We all know we should do it, but that same failing willpower and just plain old inertia makes it so easy to put it off. So, a program called Save More Tomorrow was designed to tackle this problem head on. This system is honestly, it's just so clever because it uses our own psychological quirks for us. First, you agree now to save more later, when your willpower is feeling strong. Then, the increases only happen when you get a pay raise. This is huge because it avoids that feeling of loss aversion. Your take-home pay never actually goes down. From then on, it's automatic.
It uses our own laziness for our own good. And of course, that libertarian rule is still in play. You can opt out whenever you want. It's a perfect system designed for how real humans behave, not how we're supposed to behave. So this all sounds pretty great, doesn't it? We're helping people eat better, save more money. What's the problem? Well, this is where the debate gets really, really interesting. Is this a helpful push in the right direction, or is it kind of a hidden shove? A sneaky manipulation we should be a little worried about. The big criticism really centers on freedom and our own autonomy. Okay, sure, nudges don't actually ban any choices. You can still get the brownie, you can still opt out of the savings plan. But some people argue they mess with our freedom in a deeper way, by shaping our choices without us even being fully aware of it. You can really frame this whole debate as a clash between two important values: autonomy versus well-being. Autonomy is all about our freedom to be in charge of our own lives, to make our own decisions, and yeah, to even make our own mistakes. Well-being is the goal of having a society that is healthy, wealthy, and happy. Nudging tries to boost well-being, but the critics worry that it comes at the expense of real, genuine autonomy. This is a really strong critique from the philosophers Hausman and Welch. What they're arguing here is that because nudges often work by kind of sidestepping our conscious, rational thinking, they actually undermine our control over our own lives. And for them, influencing someone's choice without them really thinking it through, well, that feels almost as threatening to their liberty as just forcing them to do it. And others, like Gruner-Yano, take that idea a step further, focusing on what happens when governments start doing the nudging. The concern here is about power. If a government gets really, really good at nudging its citizens, does that create a dangerous slide where it has way too much influence over people's lives, even if it's all for their own good? It's a serious question. But, and this is a huge but, there's a really powerful counterargument to all of this in the source material, and it's this: there is no such thing as a neutral design. Choice architecture is completely unavoidable. Think about it. The food in the cafeteria has to be arranged in some order. A company's savings plan has to have some kind of default setting. The point is, we are being nudged constantly, all day long. So, this brings us to the final, crucial takeaway. Since we know some kind of choice architecture is always going to be there, the real question isn't if we're being nudged. The real question is who is doing the nudging and what's their goal. Think about all the nudges you run into every day, from the layout of the grocery store to the design of a website. Are they designed to help you, or are they designed to help a company's bottom line? Once you start looking for the nudges, you will see them absolutely everywhere, and that changes everything.